Shalom Aleichem to everybody, and a good day to you. A good day and a good morning. And Chazda Hashem, we have this opportunity to reconvene. I just want to share something very important that next week we're going to be starting the Kuntrus, not this week. This week I want to recap on our Derech of Avodah. This week I just want to reconsider what we started with when we went into the narrative, the story, the journey begins. First of all, just in regards to sponsorship, so whether it's sponsorship or whether it's to do with the energy that we're producing here. So number one, for my family, for my dear wife, she should have bracha, mazel and hatzlacha, and my children, they should have bracha, mazel and hatzlacha. And the truth is, even though I don't say it often enough, really everything that I'm doing, hopefully maybe one day they'll be more interested than they are now in all of these teachings, and I've got something for them. We all want to leave something behind. We all want to be useful. So there's a bloodline that we are following. There's a bloodline, there's a legacy, there's a lineage. So Beis Hashem Yisbarach, for my wife, for my children, and Chazda Hashem, she should have a refuah shlema for her thumb. And she should be good. And as well, I just want mamash for the people in the Beis HaMedrash. It's fascinating to know. The Biala Rebbe once said something which is so true. The Biala Rebbe said, turning up doesn't lie. Turning up doesn't lie. What was he speaking about? We were speaking about how you can fool yourself. We were speaking about the inyan of Devekus. We were speaking about the inyan of, the subjective. And a person may think they're on this high spiritual level. A person may think that they're close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Turning up doesn't lie. What does that mean? How do we know if we're doing well in life? How do we know? And this fits into the Derech of Avodah, but the nakud of knowing if you're doing well is there certain markers that should involve, that need to involve you being pulled out of yourself in your subjective experience. So that means I turn up. That means I can give the space for somebody else to be vulnerable. I can hold space. When somebody speaks to me, the Biala Rebbe said, when somebody says something that you don't like, do you get offended and bent out of shape that you have to attack, or can you hold that space? And the nakuda of turning up, and really this coined the sentence from the Biala Rebbe, that what ultimately we want is long-term, deep, intimate relationship. Long-term, deep, intimate relationship doesn't lie. There's a very, very deep yesod, a very, very deep axiomatic truth. And that is the body doesn't lie, for example. When a person's sick, they're sick. The physical world, when we are not looking after the physical world gets sick. And the realm of physicality, Teva, as we know, is Gematria Elokim, which is Din. The nakuda of teva, the nakuda of physicality, the nakuda of turning up, the nakuda of the gashmis being in this world is a world where if you turn up, if you feel good, then you're onto something. If you are, committing and you're there, that you're onto something. A person falls. We know that a person falls. As Rabbi Nachman tells us in Lukutei Maran Tinyana Mem Daled. Oh, what a Torah. What a saving grace. What a saving grace for so many people. What a Torah. Rabbi Nachman tells us that number one, we are never ever going to get anything perfect. We fall. The human being is subject to human fault. We're subject to fault. And the other nakuda that Rabbi Nachman brings there, Rabbeinu, Chazda Hashem, thank you Rabbeinu, thank you Rabbi Nachman. He says that Hashem's not out to get us. Hashem is not out to get us. Now, we can hear all of these words cerebrally, but do we bring it down into the experience? Can I feel safe in my own body? Can I feel safe in my own skin? And that's an nakuda which, again, this is the journey that we're taking. This is what we're trying to speak about here. So I spoke about my wife and family. I'm speaking about the people in the Beis HaMedrash. This is for the people in the Beis HaMedrash, that they turn up week in, week out, that we get to see each other, that we get to have conversations that are sometimes difficult. Nachon, sometimes we have a difficult conversation. But the honor of somebody feeling safe enough to share something uncomfortable that they wouldn't share with anything else is very profound. It's very profound. I remember speaking to my father, and the Biala Rebbe said another time. So the Biala Rebbe asked me, who am I speaking to? I would tell the Biala Rebbe of everything. I would tell him all my Averos. I would do vidui. I think he thought I was a bit strange, but Tachlis that's what a Rebbe is for. He puts up with your shtuyot. So Biala Rebbe, I remember I did vidui and I told him all my Averos. And he said to me, do you do this with anyone else? I said, yeah, my pa, my abba, my daddy. And as well, b'schus, it comes up now to say to my ima and abba, they should have bracha, mazel and hatzlacha. And this nakuda of having parents, if you can be that, if you can be a parent that can hold a space that a child could share anything and still feel safe, you're onto something. So thank you to my parents who, Baruch Hashem, my grandparents as well, that especially my grandfather, my father's father, it's very profound being in the presence of somebody who really knows you, turning up, that they can give you that space where you can say anything. And as my wife knows, she laughs because, my parents, I talk to them about everything. So thank you to them. And thank you, as I said, the people in the Beis HaMedrash, the friends that we have. I think she wants the pen. To give the pen? It's not working? So this nakuda is very, very profound. And I'm very thankful for those who turn up, Baruch Hashem. And hopefully we're working on building a space. If somebody asks, take a step back, by the tzaddikim, all of this is part of the Hagdama. All of this is don't think it's just like little things. Everything I'm saying is pregnant with meaning. It should just be understood. So it's not just like who the shiur is for and sponsorship and all of that stuff. But the nakuda is that throughout the generations, and it's something that we've lost a little bit, throughout the generations, you'd have pockets of communities. So you'd have the Heilige Zayda, the Noam Elimelech. You'd have the Heilige Zayda, the Ropshitzer, and you'd have these different tzaddikim, the Gra, the Heilige Zayda as well, the Gra. You'd have these tzaddikim, and they would have their communities, whether it's Ishbitz, whether it's the Baal Shem Tov. You'd have these small groups, and they would learn together. And part of their learning together, if it didn't revolve around relationship, something was very wrong. And it could even be, we spoke about this nakuda of unconscious competency and conscious competency, that we want to transmit something. We want to transmit an ancient body of wisdom. And there is the cerebral words that are being used. And that's important. But as I have a very dear friend here, Avraham ben Moshe. I don't want to say his name because maybe he'll smack me afterwards. But the nakuda is what? The nakuda is relationship. The chaburas, all of these different groups had a consistent meeting. They came to daven, they ate together, as the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer tells us, eating, and they spent time together. It's the only way you can get to know somebody. How do you really get to know somebody? Through spending time together. And then when you bring intention, and when you bring kavana, and when you bring relationship, and you can create that space to see and hear each other, I can promise you we all have flaws. Even you have flaws? He has flaws as well? No. We all have flaws. That I can tell you. We all have flaws. But you know what else we have? We have a lot of milas. We have so many good points. And we need each other to remind us of that. We need each other. We need to hear the words, I love you. We need to hear the words, I believe in you. We need to hear those words, I care for you. We need it. It's not something little, stupid, small. It isn't. And the nakuda is that consistency. So to have that's very, very, very special. So again, thank you to the family. Thank you to Baruch Hashem, the people, the chevra who turn up. Thank you to the chaburas, week in, week out, the different chaburas. We've got Pilsner Work Inspired and all the other chaburas that we are meeting. And we're trying to create tzimtzum, space Tzimtzum is a paradox within itself, because Tzimtzum means to constrict, but Tzimtzum is space. So, there's a paradox, because the reality is, the more, as Rabbi Nachman says in Torah Vav, the more that you shrink your own kavod, the more you're mitzamtzem, you give room for higher consciousness to come in. That's really the whole nakuda of Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman is all about making space to let the light in. It's very, very much, again, deep siders here, but the nakuda is that we can make space for each other, and we turn up, and sometimes we have to work things out as individuals, as groups. We have to iron out the kinks, and that's very special. As well, I just want to wish bracha and hatzlacha, Baruch Hashem, mazel tov to the Heilige Spiegelmans, and as well the Lazars at weddings last week and this week. Really special, Baruch Hashem, and the other celebrations that we have. To wish the Baron family, who right now they've gone abroad, and they should have bracha and hatzlacha. They come up in my mind now. As well, Baruch Hashem, two people I was thinking about today. Mrs. Nathan, she should have bracha, mazon, and hatzlacha. She's doing a shalom bayis. She's doing a what's it called for the home? Chanukah Sabayis, Beis Hashem, and as well, Newman family, who I was thinking about today, they should have bracha, mazel, and hatzlacha. And Beis Hashem, just this nakuda of just us coming together. We should mamash go. We should go from strength to strength, all of us. And I wanted today, we started a beautiful chabura. I share stroke chabura, where we completed The Journey Begins. And just to recap a little bit of what we are trying to build here, what we're trying to build. And for sure it leads into the Yom Tovim. Whether we'll speak about that, I'm not sure. But it's all about the Yom Tovim as well. So, Tachlis is, there's fundamental questions that we should revisit. Foundations of Yiddishkeit that we should revisit. The reason why we need to revisit them is because, my friends, I don't know if you've noticed, we've been in exile for a very, very, very long time. And just in the last 170 years, between the First and Second World War, we've lost a tremendous amount. And the truth is, we need to lose in order to refind. And the refinding already is going to be a far more integrated refinding Beis Hashem. But just to share a little bit of fundamentals that we need to really invest in and ask ourselves. Fundamentals like, for example, what is this world we are living in? What is this world? We live in a world where on this rock floating in space, and there are other planets, and there's galaxies, and it goes on and on and on. What is all of that? Fundamental question. What is that? What is that? When we are living in this world, what is that? What are we in? What does it mean to us? So, big questions. The world we are within, the world we are on, what is it? What's it about? What it's about, that's a fundamental question. It's a fundamental question. We should allow these questions to cross our mind. We should allow these questions to cross our mind. Another question, what's humanity? What's humanity? What is all the different nations? What's Am Yisrael? Who is Am Yisrael? Again, fundamentals. What's humanity? Who's humanity? What are the nations in the world? Who are they? What are they? What's Am Yisrael? What's our nature? Why should we belong to Am Yisrael in the way that we belong to Am Yisrael? Who is it? What is Am Yisrael? Again, fundamental questions. We can live a whole life and it could be we can live a whole life and live fine without that. But it seems to be when we look out at the world and we look at our little plot of land, our little kindergarten here in Eretz Yisrael, this wonderful, beautiful land that we are in, it could be revisiting these fundamental questions maybe good for us. Could be revisiting these questions maybe good for us. Maybe it will help us. I believe it will, but again, as I've said from the beginning, I already believe this stuff. I bought in. It's not about my experience. I try to live it. I fail a lot, but I try to live it, and a few other people bought in as well. They're convinced. But you know who needs to ask these questions and hold these questions? It's you. You have to own it. You have to be the hero of your story. You have to be your knight in shining armor. We are here to support each other. We're here to support each other in happiness. We're here to support each other in joy. But I'm not here to give you your joy. I'm not here to give you your happiness. You have to be whole within yourself, as we mentioned, I think in the first time we met, that a whole heart is a broken heart. So an idea is permeability. I can let in and I can let out. In the fight against the Eruv Rav, it's not really a fight because we're not really fighting. The intention is caring, sharing, supporting and encouraging with good, firm boundaries. You have to have a sense of self. You have to have a strong sense of self. You have to know your likes, your dislikes. You have to know who and what you are. But you have to be permeable as well, like a cell in the body. We spoke about the inyan of Adam and Chava, that at first Adam and Chava were see-through. The Sfarim HaKadoshim tell us that they were see-through, they were permeable. So Adam saw in Chava, and Chava saw in Adam. Adam saw within Adam, and Chava saw within Chava, before the Chet. But then when they ate from the fruit of the tree, we know that there was a collapse, there was an internal collapse, and their consciousness fell into what now we can label with a bad translation, the ego self. That the ruach, the das, fell into the nefesh. That made thicker consciousness. Now, Adam can't see in Chava and Chava can't see in Adam, but Adam can't see in Adam and Chava can't see in Chava. So we can't see in ourselves and we can't see within one another. So the only tool the Pilsner Rebbe would say we have is vulnerability, tzimtzum. To create space with intention, where I give you space, permission, patience to talk. And as you talk, I'm in a state of das, I could really listen to you. Rabbi Yosef would call this Baal Shem Tov listening. In the world of the Baal Shem Tov, by the Chaburas, this is how people listen to each other. They gave space to hold each other. And it wasn't personal because it wasn't in a state of nefesh. They're in a state of hishtavus. So what you are saying, whether good or bad, didn't affect me because I'm in a state of consciousness, a state of hishtavus. Hishtavus is, it's all the same to me. Hishtavus is, it's not good, bad, right, wrong. It just is. I can, in a healthy way, disconnect. In a healthy way, I can observe my own inner world, but I can give you space. This is to do with das tachtoin, chitzoni and pnimi. I can see you, I can hear you, I can acknowledge you, I can validate you, and I can still hold my position. And tachlis, if it's something about me, I'm connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so I'm bigger than that which is saying. And I'm giving you reshus to go into your nefesh and share where you are, and then that will change, that will swap. So I sometimes could become the speaker, and then the other person who is speaking becomes the listener, and we can reflect, and we can then make headways and growth and deepening our relationship. This is how a relationship works. It's interesting. Rabbi Singer once said, it's not necessarily the words you say, but it's the way you say those words when you are being heard in a state of das, or when you're speaking in a state of das. The content is not what deepens the relationship. The act of listening and speaking from this conscious space is what breeds intimacy and relationship. So it's not what's necessarily being said, but it's the transmission of that energy in what creates intimacy in a relationship. And that's what we want for Am Yisrael. That's what we want for Am Yisrael. That's what we want for all of us. So these questions, the world we live in, what's the big picture, the world we live in, what's it about? What's humanity? What is humanity? What is Am Yisrael? Who is Am Yisrael? Why should we be bothered? Why should we notice? Why should we care? Why should we be proud? What's Eretz Yisrael? What is Eretz Yisrael? Who is Eretz Yisrael? What's the connection between Am Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael? These are fundamental questions that we need to explore from time to time, and we have to make sure that we have compelling answers. What's the unfolding of history? Another fundamental. The unfolding of history. Is there a cycle? Is there a system? Is there a pattern to history that we could notice? What's Torah? What's Torah? What's mitzvahs? Why should we care? I think we mentioned as well in the first shiur, when we speak about Torah mitzvahs, there's the act of Torah mitzvahs, but then there's the person doing the Torah mitzvahs. There's a foreground and a background. The foreground, done without the proper background, can hurt us. So, for example, when we start to understand self, who the self is, what the self is, we understand that we're not just a body and a soul, we're not just a brain on a stem, we're not just a cerebral activity going on. There's 5 parts to the soul. It's interesting. 5 parts to the human experience. And each part has a name. And each part and its name has an experience. And the more that we can understand the experience and the name, it could be, the more we will be healthier in whatever healthier means. And that could be good for us. What's Torah? What's mitzvahs? We were given something. We were given Torah mitzvahs. Mitzvah means to connect. Halacha, for example, halacha is gematria 61, which is gematria kli, 60. Kli is 60. Nachon? Yeah. Halacha is 60. And halacha is, if you turn around the words, hakala. So we have been given something, and it becomes a vessel to hold that light. When, for example, a person goes to therapy, so why does a person go to therapy? On a certain respect, a person goes to therapy because there's the way that they are living and there's the things that they want to do in the world. So what happens when there's some sort of hiccup in the system, the things that they want to do in the world, they can't necessarily do. So if they want to do something, they want to speak to somebody, they want to turn up, so there's something that stops them. So there's some sort of blockage. So the world of therapy deals with these dislocations. And what therapy on a certain respect wants is to heal these dislocations. And when you heal these blockages, these dislocations, it gives us the ability from turning up to A and what I want to do to go to B. Instead of having, so to speak, A and C, I want to do C, but I can't do C because something's stopping me, so that's the B. A, I want to do something. B, can I do it or not? And C, am I going to do it? So if the B is I can't do it because something's stopping me, person goes to therapy and they heal. They heal whatever parts are going on inside, whatever it is, they heal. And from that healing, then they can do the things that they want to do. And in Yiddishkeit, exile is very much to do with a spiritual, psychobiological healing. A spiritual, psychobiological, physiological healing. And we want to recreate this integration. We want to come back to a point where we are completely and utterly integrated. We're a parts of Shalem. And we know that we have the spirit, we have the mind, we have the emotions, which is inclusive of our thoughts, our fleeting thoughts, our continuous fleeting thoughts, and then we have as well the body, the vessel, then we have the physical world. And we want to create an alignment with all of these different parts. And we see very, very clearly that after, or when the Bnei Yisrael were in Egypt, so there was a kaitzer ruach. They were in this state of whether we want to call it trauma, they were in a trauma state. And then what happens is that Moshe Rabbeinu comes along and everyone has their Moshe Rabbeinu within. As Rabbi Nachman says, we have all the 17 nations within that we have to heal. We have all the Goliaths, the 4 exiles within us that we have to heal. And then they come out of Egypt and they spend this time, so you've got A, being in Egypt, B, coming out of Egypt, and C, receiving the Torah. So you've got a group of people who are in this trauma state, then they have to go through their healing, and then they receive the Torah. So who received the Torah? As the Medrash tells us very, very clearly, the Medrash Rabbah tells us very clearly that all of those people at Har Sinai were healed. They were healed. So anybody that was a cripple, they could walk. Anyone that was blind, they can see. Anyone that was deaf, and Rabbi Singer would expand this. Anyone who had ADHD didn't have ADHD anymore. Anyone who had dyslexia could read just fine, whatever it may be. Everybody was brought to a state of healing. What is another term for this healing? In our language, in Lashon HaKodesh, in Torah language, this is an alignment of the soul parts. There's an alignment of all the soul parts. Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh, Chaim, Yechidah, they're all aligned. And if you remember, we spoke about Rabbi Nachman in Likutei, Kitzur Likutei Maran, Kaf Zayin. Rabbi Nosson tells us that a disconnect between the Neshama and the Nefesh is what we call a Chayla Nefesh. What we call a machlekes is when there's a disconnect. So there's an alignment. With this alignment, the Torah could be makabel. And then now that we've received the Torah, we want to bring more around in the world. Now what happened is that we went into exile, which is again part of our narrative, part of our story. And what happened within this story is we find ourselves, as the Medrash says, in the same place as we did when we left Mitzrayim. The difference is everything will be far, far quicker today. So we are what we call in the space of Derech Eretz. There's what we call Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah. Coming out of Mitzrayim is called Derech Eretz. And until we come to Ma'amad Har Sinai, that's called Torah. What's all the healing? You look out at the world today. People ask me this question. I spent a long time with the Biala Rebbe discussing this Nakuda, and as well with Dayan Lopian discussing this Nakuda. Is Torah healing? Is Torah healing? It's true to say, it says in Chazal, Torah could be a drug of, an elixir of life or elixir of death. So it's interesting if you look all over, and it's the spoken, subtle, it's the unspoken, subtle reality. You look at the Gra and Evan Shleim at the beginning, you look at Tzeit El Katan, you look all around. Tikkun Hamidos is the prerequisite or in conjunction with Torah. Tikkun Hamidos is what we call Derech Eretz. So everything that's going on today is called Derech Eretz. What we are seeing in the world is called Derech Eretz. Everyone, the cold plunges and the breathing and all the healing that's taking place and all the modality, whether it's to do with somatic experience, whether it's Thai massage, whether it's physical therapy, whatever it may be called. We see in the world today people are switching gear because we are preparing for our next stage of evolution, which is to be makabel the Torah again. Torah is not healing within itself. Torah is already a state of a greater perfection. And what we need to do to reconnect to that is the Derech Eretz. And we're in the world, we're in the space right now of Derech Eretz. And what has carried us in the exile is the fact that we had Torah. But now there's a reintegration process. You see, my friends, when we listen to the world outside, we can come to feel things are speeding up. Really, things are not speeding up. It's not that things are speeding up. Time is time. What's happening is we know there's a birur nitzaisis kedusha. There's a shattering of the vessels in the times of Adam and Chava. There was a shattering before that. There was a secondary shattering. And our job really is to fix up. This is brought in a kuntras of Adam Arishon. This is a favored topic and a very important topic by Rabbi Singer. The Pilsner Rav spent many decades studying exactly what happened with Chet Adam and all the psukim, and he shows and he shares that the unfolding of what happened pre-Chet, Chet, and then post-Chet is the human story. Because we are it. We are those shards of Adam Rishon. We are the primal soul. And if somebody would ask, what are we exiled from? We're exiled from love and oneness, and we have to find our way back. And that's to do with all of the multi-generational healing that we have to go through to get there. So, it's not personal. When a person goes through darkness today, I once took a yid, a long time ago, I took a yid to Rav Shapira, and this yid was battling darkness, battling his inner demons, and a funny matzav took place. I wasn't there when it took place. I heard about it afterwards. So he went into Rav Shapir and he spoke to Rav Shapir, and he came out and he looked completely different. He went in white like a ghost and he came out with color. And I said, well, what happened? So he said that Rav Shapira said to him that all the darkness that he's dealing with is from a relative from a number of hundreds of years ago. And he says, I want you to speak to your grandmother I want you to speak to your grandmother and speak to your grandmother about this particular relative. It's her great-grandfather who I believe she met. And lo and behold, tachlis. And he did a healing. The guy still struggles, but not like that struggle was when I took him to Rav Shapira. We are carrying thousands and thousands and thousands of strands of DNA that belong to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people within us right now. So there's the darkness and the heaviness of that. But the moment we can unlock that internal wisdom, and we're coming to it, that's what the healing is. The healing is integration. Healing is this integration. And we are in the world of Derech Eretz. We're about to go into the world of Torah. It's inevitable. You look at the world, you don't have to be such a chacham. If you pull back and you look out at the world, you see crazy things are happening. It's not that things are speeding up. The Bir Nitzaisis Kedusha is that the technology and the vessels that we have will allow us to do the healing at a much quicker rate. Why? Because we have a timeline, 6,000 years. So we have to do all of the fixing. We have to fix everything up within the 6,000 years. So within the 6,000 years, at the beginning, things were a little bit slower. But then as we come further along the timeline, what's going to happen is that so much more is happening. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu blesses us. Everybody knows the Maimah Chazal, the Zayah that speaks about how in the year 6,000, the heavenly waters and the lower waters, they're going to come and they're going to kiss and connect. That's, so to speak, the Or and the Kli coming together. And the Industrial Revolution from 1740 to 1840 onwards. Look at it. We live in a world where exponentially things are happening so quickly that experts in their specific fields can't keep up with what's coming out. Things aren't speeding up, but there's a rapid fire of Bir Nitzaisis Kedusha. This is all to do with Derech Eretz. What do we do once we are healed? When we're speaking about breathing, what do we do with the breathing? Is the breathing the end within itself, or is the breathing a preparation for something else? Preparation. When we're talking about cold plunge, when we're talking about any form of healing, when you're speaking about any form of psychology, is it that within itself, or do you want to become more from it? So for example, anybody we've spoken about this for decades already. So what do we do before we daven? For 15 years we've done breathing in the morning. 15 years. Why? Preparation, as Rabbi Nachman says, and this is, you have to chap why Rabbi Nachman is saying this. All his teachings are hagdamas within hagdamas. Everything is hagdamas, because when you move into something, you just realize there's more to do, but you have to have done that unpeeling to move in to realize there's more. It's hagdamas. So the breathing is not a be-all and end-all. The breathing is a hagdama. And through the breathing, when you breathe in Elokus, and if you attach yichudim to that, it's fascinating. In the world, when we were speaking about this a number of weeks ago, we went to visit somebody and we're speaking about the inyan of yichudim. And it's fascinating, in the secular world, we've got this very potent, in the secular world, there's a lot of embodiment, which is found in the Rashash. We were speaking about this yesterday, Rashash, Pesach, Nahar Shalom, which is worth mentioning in a moment. The Nakuda is Yichudim. Yichudim is so potent. So in the world of what we are sharing here, which we'll go into very, very quickly, the more you prepare yourself, the more potent Yichudim are. When we understand everything is energy, and what we are doing, as we said, we are constantly creating vessels for energy. We're constantly creating vessels for energy. So the question is, can that vessel hold that energy or not? And we're living in a generation where there's so much light. There's so much opportunity. There's so much light. And one reason why there's breakdown, one reason when we look out at the world that there's breakdown, and we mentioned this before, we have all of the information that we need. We have all of the resources that we need. We're not lacking anything apart from the re-establishment of all the soul parts on all the levels. Because as we know, in mathematics, you have Fibonacci's principle, you have the golden ratio. Everything is a repetitive theme within everything else. Everything is fractaled. We live in a world of, everything is a repetitive theme on every single level. I'm sure some of you have seen, sometimes you see an eye, and then you see, like, you go bigger and bigger to a galaxy, or sometimes you could see a neuron, and then you see these repetitive patterns. They even look the same. Everything is a repetitive theme, like above and below, like within, without. And that's why we say, famously by the Ropshitz, a change anywhere is a change everywhere. There's no such thing as that not being a truth. A change anywhere is a change everywhere. And that's something very, very important to remember. Something very important to remind ourselves. And really what we're saying is that you are your own redemption. So the more you come in to self and understand self, that will expand. You'll start to understand the world we live in, and maybe we can conjure up and come up with wholesome answers that fit with our mind, that are compelling, that are fitting for this modern age. When a person understands how this world is unfolding, and we can start to go into and understand really what Torah mitzvahs are. We can understand what humanity is. We can understand what Am Yisrael is. Because really, you understand one element, you understand everything. All a repetitive theme. And where we are in our generation, the Nahar Shalom writes, Pesach, and the whole Sefer Day of the Leshem is about this, is that you have Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh, Chabad, Chagat, Nehim, and you have this three-stage process. The first stage, which relates to self, Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh, which is relates to history. You've got Tov, Avot, Torah, and Yemais Moshiach. So the first stage is the stage of the Nevi'im, the stage of this deep connection, experiential connection that people have and had. That's the first stage. Then we shift into the world of Torah, which bridges obviously, but the world of Torah, the world of the Chachamim, where we had obviously the bridge of Nevuah, but we went then into the Torah Sheba'al Peh. And the last leg of our journey is the embodiment, Nefesh. And that's the Rashash writes, Pesach, that it's the embodiment. And shifts are being made. Shifts are being made for so long. For so long. It's interesting. I don't know if you've ever asked this question. Wouldn't it make sense to be Jewish is determined by you wanting to keep Torah mitzvahs and not by a bloodline? So wouldn't it make sense, if you think about it, think about the following. Just entertain the following. Just imagine if to be Jewish was not dependent on my mommy and my mommy's mommy and my mommy's mommy. It wasn't dependent on me becoming, a person becoming a ger. It was dependent on the fact I want to consciously keep Torah mitzvahs. But we don't have that. It's based on a bloodline.
But also those who want.
But what happens though, somebody who doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs, are they still part of Am Yisrael?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that? What do you do with the fact that we have members of our family and they don't want to keep Torah mitzvahs? They're not connected. What do you do with that? They're still part of the family. What does that call from us? What does it call from us who are keeping Torah mitzvahs if that's the reality? What does it mean for us as a nation?
That being Jewish is not dependent on what you do.
So what does it call for us? Those people who keep Torah mitzvahs and are part of it, how could we view somebody who's not keeping Torah mitzvahs? It's family. It forces us. It forces us to think differently. You hear what I'm saying? It forces us to think differently. It forces us to look at life differently. Somebody who is not frum, not religious, not shayma Torah mitzvahs, they're just as, so to speak, Jewish as me. You may logically think, why can't it just be, I keep Torah mitzvahs, I'm Jewish. And somebody who doesn't keep Torah mitzvahs is not Jewish. It doesn't work like that. Because there's an integration process. There's an ego death that needs to occur in the way that things are set up right now. Ultimately, it's very, very, very dramatic and powerful. You hear the subtlety? It's very dramatic and it's very powerful. We take it for granted. We don't necessarily think about it. But we need to ask those questions. We need to be mizbainan and we need to ask those questions. People speak about achdus. This is something that we will go into in a minute. People speak about achdus, but if a person's not guided into achdus, if a person's not guided in how to do achdus, there's not going to be achdus. Achdus has a background and a foreground. To have unity, to recognize what I'm exiled from. I'm exiled from love and oneness. We want to experience joy. We want to experience love. We want to experience awe. We want to experience that yearning. We want to experience mamish good feelings. Again, the Heilige Tzaddik, the Pilsner Rav would say there's two feelings we feel. Oineg, oinega. Oineg, oinega. It's the same letters. Because we all have the same stuff. Question is, how are we formulating it in our mind? Where is our mind leading us? And all we have is choice. All we have is choice. And we have to become more conscious, choose, and to always be more than the prat. Machlokes is met chelek, death to the part. Become more. You want to get rid of machlokes, internal machlokes, external machlokes, you have to become more. And we have to ask these questions. We have to ask the question, what is this world I'm living in? Because we're now in the world of Derech Eretz, and we're going to come to Makabala Torah. We're going to, by Derech HaBaal Shem Tov, we know that the world of Maimed Har Sinai, whatever it means, and the Tosha Rebbe brings this, that world on a certain respect energetically is drying up. We're drawing from Yemaisa Moshiach. There's a switch that occurs. There's an evolution that's happening within humanity, and for sure within Am Yisrael. But if I don't know what Am Yisrael is, if I don't know who Am Yisrael is, if I don't know what humanity is, if I don't know what this world I'm living is, if I don't understand deeply what's Torah and mitzvahs, what is Torah? Why is it important? What's Hashem? What is Hashem? What is this Hashem I believe in? Do I believe in a 3-year-old version of Hashem? Did my Hashem ever evolve more than when I was 3 years old? And we're asked to ask these questions. We're asked to investigate. We're asked to investigate. We're asked to ask these questions. And it's really, really important. It's true to say somebody who's living just fine, good for them, Chazdei Hashem. But there's a lot of people who, they find themselves in a situation where they look out at the world and they see fracture. They look out at the world and they are bothered by it. They're bothered by the discomfort. They're bothered by the so many people hurting. And they want to understand, well, why is this happening? Do we have reasons? We like reasons. Do we have reasons? Are we meant to be more? Well, our version of history lays out such a beautiful truth, is that there's an evolution that takes place that we're shifting into so quickly. We know we have 6,000 years. And we know there's a fixing to be done, a beautification to be done. And again, I'm taking for granted this is all beliefs. That's how we function. And what's called for from us is to be mispoined and to think, to ask the question, and to have the conversations. And as well, to allow the conversations to be with whatever comes out. Like this is another nakuda, another very, very important nakuda. That a person's gone through their life and they've compounded so many beliefs and thoughts, and wherever they are in that moment is a sum total of their history. So you have to give that space to be. And it takes practice, it takes time. And as we said, Tzimtzum, we need to make that space. We need to contract ourselves, and we need to open up at Tzimtzum to create that bubble where we can allow for communication to occur. The communication itself, as I said, as Rabbi Singer would say, the very fact that you're creating that Tzimtzum, as in you are moving from a place of nefesh into das, where you can hold that other person in that space, that's healing within itself. Pardon?
Is that the ego death?
Ego death. My thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations aren't coming up. And depending on my level of maturity, if a thought comes up when I'm listening to you, I'll say, stop for a moment, please. Menuchas hanefesh, yeshiva das, deveikus. Okay, now you are it. Let's start again. And if another voice comes up, breathe in Hashem. I'm breathing in Hashem into me. I'm in Hashem. Let go. I'm present. I'm back with you. But when we gift people that space, that's transformation. And when we're speaking about when we're speaking about the world of Rosh Hashanah, we know that the creation of world is Rosh Hashanah. This is Rosh Hashanah. Who's Hashem giving space for? Us. Hashem is giving space for us. Hashem is mamish. I remember the correction of a Rebbe, Zichron Livracha. He once said, Reb Tzvi Hirsch once said, it's Pelagic. I speak to so many people from all walks of life, and he said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, vulnerability, so humble, so vulnerable. If Hashem could give space for evil to exist, which is separate, Raz, we said etymologically, Ra is separate, unintegrated, we want to integrate. The fact that Hashem could give space, I want to be like Hashem, I can give space as well. Because that's the only way the reintegration will start to occur. And we are now at our next shift. Humanistically, we're shifting in. There's an evolution, a humanistic evolution that's taking place. And there's going to be a combination, there's going to be that pinnacle point where everything is coming towards, then it's going to open up into something new. 6,000 years is going to open up into 7,000 years. And as we know, based on the Mekubalim, the Ramchal says it very clearly, 7 opens up into 8, 8 opens up into 9, and 9 opens up into 10. The Leshem speaks about this. But we are living in the most unbelievable door. We're living in the most unbelievable door. And we need to work on our gratitude. We need to work on our hope. The love child of hope and gratitude is resilience. Hod, netzach, and yesod. Last leg of our Avodah. And the nakuda is that in our Derech of Avodah, as we wind down in our Derech of Avodah, and I know I've gone here and I've gone there and I've gone up and I've gone down and I've gone in and I've gone out. Okay, that's the nature of today's sharing session. The nakuda of our Derech of Avodah is you have the fundamentals. Stage 1, the fundamentals, as we've discussed, that Hashem created a beautiful world and Hashem wants us to experience a beautiful life. Life. And it's a challenge. I validate, it's a challenge. But to know that Hashem has created, based on a Vayikra Rabbah, Hashem has created a beautiful world, and we want to live in this beautiful world, having a beautiful experience. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that for us. As well, part of the first set of beliefs is we need to believe in our own good, and we need to believe that we can create a wonderful life. We as well need to believe in Hashem's good, and Hashem wants to support us in living a wonderful life. It's the first shift. And then the next four wisdom teachings are to do with what we need to metaken in our door. What do we need to metaken in our door? What do we need to fix in our generation? And I'll say, especially over the last 30 years for the foreseeable future, we need to concentrate on what? Physical and mental health. Physical and mental health, which is preparing the kli. The midos that we need to metaken based on the Arizal, based on the Rashash, Nahar Shalom, Pesach, and other Makoros, to metaken Hod, Netzach, and Yesod. What's Hod? Gratitude, to be radical beings of gratitude. Hod, Netzach. Netzach is hope and optimism. And what's Yesod? Resilience. And it's a triad. You open up the door to gratitude, that then births hope and optimism. You open up hope and optimism, that then opens up resilience. And that resilience is very important. We look out at the world, that's what we need to metaken. Now you take an individual who's working on whatever level on their mental and physical health. You take an individual who's working on being metaken, Hod, Netzach, and Yesod. What's the natural consequence? Typically, with the right guidance, you then can contribute and collaborate. You then feel more secure in yourself, and hopefully you're encouraged to believe that you have something to give. You have something that the world is looking for. You have something that the world is waiting for. You have your shine. So you feel more comfortable and more confident. And when you are working on your mental and physical health, and you're working on Hod, Netzach, and Yesod, and you're working on figuring out who you are, that you can give something. Collaboration, so contribution and collaboration. That's to do with Achdus. Try having Achdus with somebody who's insecure. Try having Achdus with somebody who doesn't have that mental and physical. It's really difficult. So in order to have Achdus, people speak about Achdus. In order to have Achdus, you have to have the first two. Again, challenge it. It's definitely worth speaking about. These are why we're sharing these, to have these conversations. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to say something. You may put a knetch on it that's even better. You may have a better way of communicating it. So be it. Humility. We're here to grow together. Caring, sharing, supporting, and encouraging with good, firm boundaries. We have to start somewhere. I'm here. I'm trying to contribute and collaborate. So to create Achdus, you have to be led into it. Physical and mental health, Hod, Netzach, and Yesod, superpowers of Midos, collaboration and contribution. And where is all that taking place in our world? This world. Deep dive into physicality. What is physicality? What is this world we live in? How does this world exist? So they're the four drivers. You've got the two beliefs that we're to live with, and we've got these four drivers of what we're meant to matakin in this world. Then we shift in the wisdom teachings. What are the wisdom teachings? The embodiment of these drivers, of these tikkunim. You have the divine plan, which is objective, which we call Maisa Bereshis. The world we live in. What is this world? What are these worlds? What are these universes that we are living in? What's this world we're living in? The physical world, the spiritual worlds. What are the dimensions of this world? So we share, there's, as a starting place, because obviously pratim. We start somewhere. So the general framework is we're in makom. And then there's olam, shana, and nefesh. Time, there's olam, space, time, and self. And the quality of the union of space and time is dependent on self. And the quality of self in conjunction with space and time, obviously, it's going to allow you with guidance to be in makom. I become that vehicle to saturate myself and saturate everything and anything that I'm doing. Everything and anything that I'm doing with God light and love and joy and awe, with respect. So it's the divine plan. Nefesh, then we shift over architecture of the soul. Who am I? How do I work? What are the different parts that I could speak about? And as we know, the Gra in Yeshaya, Perek 10 or 11, he speaks about how we have, and all across Yiddishkeit, the Arizal, Tikkun Amidos, we have all of these different parts, Knetch of IFS, exiles, we have all of these different parts within. As Rabbi Nachman tells us, and so many others, speaking to the different parts within, Vidui, speaking out, there's different parts. We want to heal, we want to integrate. So you've got the objective, which is Maisa Bereshis, then you have the Maisa Merkava. Maisa Merkava is your subjective experience. Understanding the 5 levels of soul, how that works. All of these words, the labels, Menuchas HaNefesh, Yeshuv HaDas, Harchavas HaDas, Harchavas HaDimyon, Tikkun HaMidos. When we speak about Chayla Nefesh, all of these different words, Neshama, Deveikus, Amunah, Bitachon, what's the experience of them? When we speak about Ruach HaKodesh Nevuah, and that's really what we're working towards. As we mentioned, you have Rav Kook in several places, and Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Chalap, and earlier, the Archaim HaKadosh in Shemais and Vayikra. When we are not working to develop Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, we hurt. What's one of the important points of why we need to work on Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah? It's because my incarnation is my curriculum. My incarnation is my curriculum. What does that mean? The now is my tikkun. It's not necessarily I have like, big tikkun, this is my yud, this is what I need to matakin. I've got one thing I need to matakin in the world. It's true to say there are layers, yes. But the truth is, my moment-to-moment experience is my tikkun. And when I have Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, it gives me the capacity to know how to meet the next moment. It gives me the wisdom to meet the next moment. But that's very much dependent on embodiment. And how do you balance up the objective of the divine plan and the subjective of the das material, the architecture of the soul? We have the Arba Yesodus. What are the Arba Yesodus? 4 elements, 4 foundations in life, which relate to the Hey, the Vav, the Hey, and the Yud, Hashem's name, the Tetragrammaton. It's to do with the Malchus working all your way up to the Keser. So you've got these dimensions. The Malchus is physical and financial health. Physical and financial health. Physically, and we have got the pillars of physical health and the physical pillars of financial health. That's the Hey. Then you've got the Vav, which is relationships. Then you've got the Hey, which is wisdom, knowledge and creativity, or knowledge, wisdom and creativity. And then you've got the Yud, which is to do with guidance and with your ruchnius, your spirituality. So you've got the objective, the subjective, and the bridge to allow your voice to call out, your inner world to call out and to be met in this framework that we live within. Balance, integration, creating a kaima shlema. We have that fulfilling, they're the embodied wisdom teachings that help really facilitate the tikkun of this generation, that of understanding the world we live in, understanding and really participating in collaboration and contribution. And the way we do that is through healing, working on the midos of Hod, Netzach and Yesod, working on our physical and mental health. And that's fulfilling the deep fundamental beliefs that I live in a good world and Hashem wants me to have a good experience. And I am the hero of my own story. I can choose and I'm good. I'm good. The neshama and the ruach never gets tarnished. I'm good. And I can live a good life. I can create, I can help my narrative. And Hashem is good and Hashem will help me live my narrative, as Chazal tell us. And then the last part is the integration of it all. Coming together, the conversation, the journaling, the breathing, all of this is the integration of joining the spirit to the mind to the nefesh, the heart to action. And Be'ezras Hashem, we become more and more and more whole. And we experience a good life. Kapshutai, we experience, it's not complicated. It isn't complicated, we experience a good life. And just to end, to remind ourselves that ruchnius, the way we translate ruchnius, is a vibrational frequency. Spirituality is a vibrational frequency. Yes, there are other components as well. The spiritual side, when we speak about the Arabi Sidus and spirituality, we speak about obviously our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we speak about our ability. Spirituality is our ability to come back to a place of centering after a fall. Spirituality is to do with our ability to cultivate a Baruch Hashem that happened and a Karas Atov that happened. And it's our ability and our real ability to be of service. And to remember that spirituality is a vibrational frequency. And we have a low vibrational frequency of the unwanted parts within us or the exiled parts within us. We have to learn to integrate them, and then we could raise our vibrational frequency to come to a place of love and joy and echad, come to a place of awe, olam ha-pela, this yearning, devekus, drawing the light down into me through each and every breath, each and every heartbeat, into my consciousness, flooding my consciousness, saturated in God light, and then in action. My internal world feels it, I'm on fire, and then I can share it with the world. Just imagine if everybody was upping their vibrational frequency. And that's what we want in our community. That's what we want for our community. And it's a lot of information. I get that, as I said, in and out, here and there. I get that. But the point is, we're not here for one moment. We're here to share and to talk and to open up. And Be'ezras Hashem, to live really, really well. And as we go into the Yom Tovim are an invitation to that. Rosh Hashanah is a time to think differently. Yom Kippur is a time to feel differently. And then Sukkot is a time, a space, Simsum, to hold that for ourselves and one another. Feel safe, Dveikus, or Emunah, Dveikus, and Bitachon. So Beseda, wonderful Chevra, I'm going to be quiet now. I'm going to be quiet. Whatever you heard, it's okay. Whatever you heard, this was me just sharing. It's okay. Please turn to somebody. And if there's one point that you heard, if there's one nakuda that you heard, take it away. Speak about it a little bit. 2 minutes each. take what I've said and hear what you need to hear and walk out with it and better your life, Beis Hashem. B'chavod. A couple of minutes each. Just maybe actually before, because we'll any questions that come up for you right now?
Could you speak about roughly being a vibrational frequency? Is that another way of saying energy?
Yes, it's another way of saying energy. That if we look at life in terms of actuality, we tend to take these words and make them very cerebral. They're very high concepts. Spirituality. Well, what's spirituality? Typically, the way I function is through experience. I've got my subjective experience. And there's good feelings and not good feelings. I have to speak a language, and this is part of the reformation of the way we use words and translate words. I have to use a word that's experiential more than it is cerebral. So we can say spirituality, and we could break down elements of spirituality, being of service, my relationship with the divine, and et cetera, but another way of translating spirituality, which I don't even like the term spirituality, ruchniut, is vibrational frequency. And there are lower, unhealthier, heavier vibrational frequencies, and there are higher vibrational frequencies. So you've got vibrational frequencies to do with nefesh, vibrational frequencies to do with ruach, and vibrational frequencies to do with neshama. And we want to know what they are experientially, and we want to work on dissolving, as we started off by saying in Tehillim a long time ago, 97.5. It's like wax. We want to melt away the wax that's separating the union between all things in a healthy way. So that only occurs when we can raise and develop and expand and amplify our vibrational frequency, moving from depression, feel judged, lusts, moving into tolerance, acceptance, and consciousness, moving into love, oneness and joy, etc., etc. Yes?
The Rav said before that mitzvah is connection.
Matsui, the Medrash says, it's brought by in Tanya and by other places, in Shalos Tshuvas Tshuva Mi'ah V'Chelek Aleph, I think it's in 16, brings 13, 14 different Makoros explaining this term of mitzvah, meaning connection, relationship, and halacha as kli, and halacha as kala. It's a vessel to hold that light. So, for example, in a lot of practices, the end product is, to breathe and to sit on a mountain and to clear your mind. That's our starting place. The nakuda of our starting place, again, Derech Eretz Kadma Torah, in the Torah world, Derech Eretz takes you to the place where, for example, now it's changing, even in Buddhism, even in Zen Buddhist practices, because really it's a much bigger conversation. Because typically a lot of the people that entered the world of the monastery, it was spending years and years and years in an ashram. Tell me if I'm wrong. And Reb Shalom Shachner as well, tell me if I'm wrong. But typically it was separation, it was spending hours and hours for the rest of one's life, really spending time in a quiet place. And that was like the goal. That was the goal. You came down to revisit society, but that's our starting place in Yiddishkeit. Our place in Yiddishkeit is to start to function from a place of Shavisi, Hishtavas, Das, and then it's the integration process into physicality. It's interesting to note, I don't want to go into it now, but I know I have a number of friends that were very deeply into bringing around Zen Buddhism into the Western world, and they brought over a lot of gurus, and it's just fascinating. There were a tremendous amount of gurus that fell. They fell prey to their lusts because they never had anything to test themselves against. In Yiddishkeit, they don't have halacha. In Yiddishkeit, we have the vessel. We've got this light, and the reason why we need to keep Torah mitzvahs is, number one, that Torah mitzvahs is an algorithm in the way this world works. V'haya im shema tishmo. You want this world to function properly. There's a mechanistic reality where Torah and mitzvahs are an energy, an algorithm. When we keep it, because we change our energetic output, it changes the world's energetic output. It rains in the right time, animals, and everything grows properly. There's another side to it as well, that when a person has a spiritual experience, and I've spoken to thousands of people that went through this, and I've noticed it for myself, spiritual experience of, I did my breathing and my cold plunge and this, I did my ayahuasca, whatever it may be. There was nothing to hold it. There was nothing to hold it. In the world of therapy today, they're figuring out you have to have follow-up. You have to have something to hold it. Now, in Yiddishkeit, that's halacha. We're meant to have Torah and mitzvahs that the Zohar says and the Medrash says are pieces of good advice that give you the capacity to hold the light that you've brought down. It's an aligning process. Tefillah is the same. Limud Torah is the same. Everything's working on a different dimension of the human experience, the neshama, the ruach, and the nefesh. Yes, sir.
I have a question. Can you speak about the boundary at which point physical ailments, emotional ailments, or spiritual ailments require a person to shift his focus away from Torah and mitzvot towards healing those elements?
So this is a very, very, very important point. A very, very important point that the nakuda of when a person is going through some sort of mental health or physical ailment, and it shifts their connection,
Or their obligation?
the obligation to Torah mitzvahs. So this is something that the Biala Rebbe and Dain Lopian and the people that I learned by, they were experts in this. This is something which really now is only becoming, in the last 10, 15 years, is only becoming a real conversation. But already 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I mean, it was the Biala Rebbe that started to speak to me about researching psychedelics. He says to me, you should know that people, in the next number of years, people are going to be very into this, and you have to be able to, talk this language, because it's very compelling. But to answer your question, it's a very case-by-case situation. It's a very, very case-by-case situation, and a person has to be very, very careful. Why? Because there's this algorithm. The algorithm is, if somebody is, first of all, you have to ask a prerequisite. You have to ask a question, and this is a halachic question. We are allowed to go to doctors. We are allowed to go to doctors. So, for example, when a person goes to a doctor and they're prescribed a medicine, what's the halachic mechanism for that to be? And is it any different? What's the halachic mechanism? So a person can take antidepressants, or a person can take beta blockers, or a person can take something for this or something for that. What's the halachic mechanism before you even go weiter? You hear the question? It's a prerequisite. People jump in. People ask me the question, how can you say it's mutter to do psychedelics? Just take that, whether it's mutter, whether it's not halachic conversation now. We're not speaking about it now, we're speaking about the concept. So there's another concept. It's not how can you have reshus to take psychedelics. How can you have reshus to take a paracetamol? How can you have reshus to take antidepressants? You think one changes? So there's a question that is the primary background question, and that is, number one, where is a person coming from? Why should they stop Torah and mitzvahs for something? That's number one. Who says one's related to the other?
I don't understand. Where is stopping for somebody to take paracetamol?
But there's a halachic category for a person, even in the Shulchan Aruch, when he goes to daven.
Listen to us, please.
That if he's experiencing distress internally, perhaps he's patur from the tefillah.
It's based on,
he can take care of that.
Based on a sailor that comes, based on sugiyas and shas, a sailor that comes into port 3 day. We don't paskin like that. Tachlis, we don't paskin like that. But the nakuda is these questions exist. And it's a case-by-case situation. You have to look at the person, you have to look at the situation, you have to look at the ripple effect. So many people today, and it's sad. It's very, you've got many different conversations to be had. There's a thing today, people speak about religious trauma.
Yeah, that comes up.
Religious trauma, it comes up tremendously. And as a therapist, you have to deal with it very often.
What do you do with someone who has trauma about a mitzvah?
So halacha speaks to that, and it's very important to find a competent rav, and case by case. I have to deal with this very often. It's a case by case. But the nakuda is, you see a lot of people, they do, many a time. And again, these are bigger conversations. But lemashal, so many people they're dealing with addictions. So they go to 12 steps. So what one finds a big chunk of the time, you have individuals who drop all Yiddishkeit and the 12th step becomes their religion for sometimes ever or sometimes for a period of time. And eventually, sometimes what happens, because they've done the inner work, then they can reconnect in a healthy way to Yiddishkeit. But it comes to show you that therapy is the nakuda of Derech Eretz, tikkun hamidos. You have to be that kli. You have to be that kli to makabel that or. And the Derech Eretz Kadma L'Torah, this is what you're speaking about. This is the conversations that need to be had, especially in this generation, because there is a confusion about it. There is a confusion, and I saw many times, you've got Biala Rebbe, another Godel and a Goin in this area is Rabbi Asher Weiss Shlita. We have a number of wonderful tzaddikim, Reb Dovid Cohen, wonderful tzaddikim in our generation who are speaking this language already for decades. And it's a case by case, but I find a lot of the time, just because a person's going through something, they don't have to drop the Torah mitzvahs. I do find it's the mind shift. There needs to be a mind shift. I find there needs to be a mind shift. So many people, as we said, there's a background to keeping Torah mitzvahs. There's a background of being led into what it is to be a Tzelem Elokim, to have that ability to navigate Menuchas HaNefesh, Yishuv Hadas, to know your own machinery. You are the mechanic of your own machinery. But how are you meant to navigate life if you don't know how you work? If you're not embodied? So these are the conversations that we're trying to have here. And they're very real conversations, and thank you for bringing that up. So it partially, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it partially speaks to your question, and obviously there's a lot more conversation to be had. Bechavod, bechavod. So, okay, anything else that you want to bring up? Okay, it's still the same. If you have a few minutes, please sit, speak to one another. What did you hear? Bracha, mazel, and hatzlacha.